we alluded to this a minute ago, but is the defense good enough for a playoff run? I mean, I feel like the focus was on them when Nick Bosa went down and Fred Warner went down, and the Niners didn't really make that big move at the trade deadline. People are like, well, this defense is just not what's the point? This defense this season is not salvageable. Is the defense good enough for a playoff run, however far that might go?
The one argument I think you can make for it that is clear is that in one game scenarios, and that's what the playoffs is, it's one game. So anything can happen, in that one single scenario. It's not best of 7. It's not anything like that. Is Robert Saleh shows up and, is one of the best, or throws a curveball when you're expecting a fastball. And all of a sudden it's a pick 6, or it's, 2 drives and out, and San Francisco's up 14-0 because, like I said, they have a great play caller. That, in my opinion, is, what could lead them there. But when I look at the unit on paper, I still say no. I would love to have seen Tatum Bethune continue to, take that momentum at linebacker. But now it seems like, Robinson isn't good enough. Kendricks, they're bringing in off the street, probably not going to be good enough. And, when I look at their schedule, I see they upset the Rams that one game. And then, they lose to Tampa Bay, give up 30. That's a playoff team. They beat the Falcons, who are pretty bad. They lose to the Texans, who are potentially a playoff team now. Beat
Stroud diced them up too.
Yeah, and Stroud diced them up, right?
Yeah.
And they give up 24 to Jackson Dart, who, they're not a playoff team. The Rams diced them up. They beat up on Jacoby Brissett, Bryce Young, and Shedeur Sanders. The defense is fixed. Or did you just beat up on 3 quarterbacks who, and yes, Bryce Young beat the Rams, but it seems like he has this split where he's much better at home than on the road. So, you got him in a situation where you got him in a split. They drove the ball down the field. Brown had an interception in the red zone. They had a couple big drops, things like that. So you say, okay, they can beat Bryce Young, but when the playoffs come and it's, Jordan Love and the Packers and then Matthew Stafford, what I say is they could beat one of them in a scenario, but can they string multiple together? That's where I start to think, I don't think they have the talent to string multiple games together.
Well, I think it's interesting to sort of examine what Robert Saleh has been doing to try to overcome the loss of Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. I mean, I guess what I would do, or like what you would expect someone to do when you have no pass rush, is to bring pressure, rush 5. And I think if you look at the stats, the Niners are doing that among the least often of any team in the league. The only team that does it is D'Amico and the Texans, and they have a killer pass rush. So what decision has Robert Saleh made? All right, I'm just going to play bend but don't break defense. I'm going to make you execute. I'm going to make you go down the field slowly, and then we're going to, toughen up, tighten up in the red zone. And that works against Jacoby Brissett.
Right.
It works against Bryce Young at home.
Right.
But who it doesn't work against? Matthew Stafford. It doesn't work at all. You get destroyed. Everyone's open, and he hits them, and he's, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I get in the playoffs against Jordan Love, I don't think it's gonna be enough to just hang back, play zone, and hope that the offense scores 40.
No, they're going to need much more from their pass rush. And I mean, Cleveland Farrell, what a cool story. But, there's a reason that he had, I think it was like 17 snaps before the 49ers signed him, at the trade deadline, because he hasn't been that productive ever. Keon White, that's great. Much better on 3rd down than the first 2 downs. So what are you going to do on those first 2 downs? Like you said, when Stafford is, playing on schedule, it's easy to, when you get Bryce Young or when you get Shedeur Sanders and you say, well, we know Shedeur Sanders is going to run the ball in the first 2 downs. We just need to, or honestly, the funny thing was in that game was, they're going to fumble they're going to fumble at inconvenient moments, and it's going to help our defense.
Not to mention Luke Gifford is still on the defense, and anytime an offense has a couple of tight ends, 2-3 tight ends, they put him in a blender. I mean, even the Browns did it. Harold Fenton Jr. wide open, Luke Gifford still looking for him.
Right. Yep. And yeah, I mean, Upton Stout's a great player, but he's a rookie who can be picked on at times, and I mean, it really comes down to, like you said, Saleh can mix up the coverages. He really likes Jair Brown, who's obviously having arguably his best season. And then Malik Mustafa, who's back from an injury and, playing very well. So, like you said, if they can bend but don't break and just lean on those 2 heavily, but like I said, I mean, Curtis Robinson, he just looks confused out there. No kidding. He's a practice squad dude who's, playing 2 weeks on the actual roster. I get it, but he's confused. You're going to replace him with a guy who just signed off the street.
They can't identify a screen pass, Parker.
Right. Which, that's what you can see. The biggest difference between him and Fred Warner is, it's just so eye-opening of those passes out to the flats that they just don't get anywhere with Fred Warner. And, now all of a sudden there's space out to the flats that you can just see. And that was happening with Bethune, but it's happening a lot more with Robinson. And it's no surprise that there's, I wouldn't be surprised if Kendrick starts, in a week or 2.
Well, the good news for the Niners is that Bethune is supposed to come back. Not sure
Right,
when. They probably won't rush him back against the Titans, but I wouldn't be surprised if he played the final 3 games. We'll see how effective he is coming off this injury, but I liked him a lot. He was very physical, very instinctual. Wasn't like a like an asset in coverage, but I thought against the run he was really good.
right. No, and it was kinda like, everyone talked about that viral clip when, Shanahan said, "Every Fred Warner isn't a Fred Warner until he's Fred Warner." Like, that
Yeah.
you kinda saw that with Bethune of like, okay, he's a nobody or a no name, but he plays with his hair on fire and, okay, he's got, issues with this and a little bit of that, but he's just inexperienced. He plays, the ball. He plays very intensely and, he understands what he's doing. He can wear the green dot, which is, obviously very valuable. So, yeah, it just seems like I think that, like we keep saying, can they reach their ceiling? Obviously, with Fred Warner, there's a higher ceiling, but Bethune does bring a bigger ceiling than what they have right now.
Yeah. Well, getting Siegel and Pinnock out of the lineup was big.